This week, we take a look at a woman that I consider one of the most important figures in American literary culture, Adrienne Rich. And you can see from this first slide here that the very scope of her lifetime is extraordinary in the sense that she's around for most of the pivotal events of the 20th century and plays a outspoken leadership voice in many of the key moments from the 1950s onward. So when we talk about Adrienne Rich, the reasons why we want to look at her are varied. First, she's just a great poet. Some of the poems are among my favorites in all of American literature, and I'll try to highlight that as we talk about them for today's lecture and the one later this week. She's a brilliant constructor of metaphor, imagery, and an experimenter with form. Her poems range from tightly structured to random and provocatively unstructured. It's quite an amazing body of work, and she's also a brilliant essayist. I think on the level of the sentence, she is, in my view, one of the 3 or 4 great essayists of the second half of the century. 1929, Great Depression. 2012, Barack Obama era. That's quite a period for someone to have lived a life. And to have been an adult in the American cultural trajectory that runs from Leave It to Beaver in 1950s television, Ozzie and Harriet, Father Knows Best, idealized family life through Mary Tyler Moore, this icon of 70s feminism, through The Cosby Show and The Sopranos. When we think about the range of references to culture, family, gender, that our culture is going to explore via television alone during her lifetime, it's pretty amazing. And so to be able to set that against this brilliant poet and writer looking at this world from a feminist, later lesbian lens, we really are offered something extraordinary. We get a perspective on the 50s American dream that Rich experiences as a young mother and housewife. We get a perspective on the 60s counterculture and radicalism that Rich is going to be part of in New York City during that period. She becomes a leading voice in late 60s, early 70s second wave feminism and ideas about how women were trying to break away from a world organized around male authority and power. And she's been an important voice for the 20 plus years that followed the 70s, where we really went through a conservative retrenchment in American culture. The Reagan administration, the first Bush administration, the Clinton administrations. You might think of Clinton as a liberal Democrat, but for Adrienne Rich and other people coming from a more radical perspective, he wasn't much better than Bush or Reagan. For her, definitely, there's a cultural retrenchment that goes on. And then at the end of her life, she's around for the Obama ascendancy. So her range that she represents of key moments in American culture and the efforts to figure out how gender and sexual identity works out over these decades and how that is connected to poetry and how poetry can work simultaneously on a personal and social level makes her extraordinary, makes her important to our work in this class. So we can think about 3 major shifts that she marks in her personal life and as an icon of American literary culture. First is this idea as a poet, she works in the realm of suggestion. And there, often her poetry is multivalent, can be read on multiple levels, and isn't as directly culturally confrontational, perhaps, as we might see her being in her essays and her more theoretical pieces that mark the other side of her life as a writer. She evolves personally from a 1950s wife and mother to 1970s feminist and lesbian liver, leader, and thinker. So there is a really interesting transition for a person and for a country. And then one of the really powerful ways that she's going to work for us is this fusion of the personal experience of love and sexuality and family and work and creative expression with a larger sense of social activism, a sense that what's happening in the individual struggle for identity is influenced, shaped, paralleled by with a product of social realities from Rich's perspective, social injustices that must be resisted, fought against, changed, and the focus of social activism. So the link, the fusion of personal energy and personal suffering and personal imagination and perspective with social agendas and values and beliefs is a really powerful part of Rich's poetry and her legacy for many of the great poets who are writing today. So with that in mind, I invite you to enjoy this Adrienne Rich lecture. It includes some notes from me. It includes some videos and recorded performances. And above all, it includes poems and one essay from Rich that I want you to read all of very carefully. This is a great opportunity to tap into a brilliant artist whose poetry is very accessible and at the same time explore a interesting link between the personal and the theoretical in the essay that we're going to finish with for this section. And then we'll be revisiting Rich's later period at the end of the week. Thanks. See you in Canvas.